Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Skåne here in the south of Sweden. Specifically we are going to go to Limhamn, right next to the Öresund Bridge in the southern part of Malmö, and we're going to revisit Sibbarps Husbryggeri for the third time. So this one is their stout beer. It comes in at 8% ABV. The two beers that I've tried from these guys before have both been IPAs, and I quite enjoyed them, I have to say, but just judging by the malt and hop profile in this beer, I think this may well be the boldest beer that I'm having from them yet. I'm really curious to see how this one turns out. As I always say, if you try something from the dark side of the spectrum and something from the light side of things, that always lets you make a good judgment on just how good a brewery are. So really looking forward to this one, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. Incidentally, this was another one that was released through the May 2019 release from the local and small assortment things that say Stenbolaget do. So get a hold of this one if you get the chance. But anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Sibbarps Husbryggeri before. No doubt I will review some more from them in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Sibbarps Husbryggeri then. So Sibbarps Husbryggeri was founded by Rolf Nilsson, who is from Limhamn, which is in southern Malmö, like I mentioned to you, right next to the Öresund Bridge. But he's a long-time beer enthusiast, and he was also quite instrumental in helping Brygghuset Finn establish in Landskrona. But previously he'd worked in the wireless communications industry, and apparently he developed his recipes on a very small brewery in his garage. He still does that to this day apparently, but then he was originally brewing them on the larger scale at Brygghuset Finn after he actually had helped them set up their brewery. But the beers were first released through Stenbolaget in February of 2016, and they're also available throughout many restaurants in Skåne. But they recently set up their own brewery in Limhamn, and they plan to brew over 100,000 litres of beer in 2019, but they do have the capacity to actually brew up to 250,000 litres of beer per year. Rolf and his wife now work full-time in the brewery, and they also plan to export the beer, and they will actually start brewing a Folksöl as well for the supermarkets, which should hopefully appear fairly soon. I don't think I've seen it yet actually, but I'm guessing that if it was to appear it would be in Malmö and Landskrona first, probably just because of the connections that the brewery has. At the moment, from what I gather, they've brewed about 8 or 9 different commercially available beers, so hopefully I can review a few more of those for you over the next little while. I reviewed their New England IPA that they released recently. I also reviewed the Citra IPA, which was one of the first beers that they did actually. When I reviewed that, they only had about 3 or 4 beers in their assortment in total. So yeah, they have come a long way over the last kind of year or two actually. So one of the Malmö breweries that you definitely want to check out. The Citra IPA was really nice. The New England IPA was interesting, but not a New England IPA in the traditional sense, in my opinion at least. But like I say, very curious to see how this beer turns out. I think this is the boldest one that they've tried yet actually. But that's all you really need to know about the brewery just now. A very small brewery based in southern Malmö, and one that you definitely should check out actually. They do have a couple of interesting beers in there. They seem to be quite good with you know, using the Citra hop and things like that. The beers that I've had that have involved Citra have always been quite interesting. But yeah, check out the brewery website in the description below. You can learn a little bit more about them, and of course you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram, and that'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on at the brewery. So yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself then. We can get rid of the brewery notes. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one then before we open it up. There you can see the bird, which is the standard symbol of the Sibbarps Husbryggeri. I'm not sure if that's an albatross. I'm guessing it is, just because of the sheer wingspan of the thing. Those birds are absolute beasts. You know, don't know if it's about 2 meters, it must be about 2 meters or something, their wingspan. But yeah, that is, the bird in its head is also on the bottle cap of this one. Tells you a little bit about the beer on the side here. Our stout is a thick but balanced, is thick but has balanced tones of coffee, licorice, citrus, and I'm not sure what coffering is actually, to be honest with you. But it says on the side here, the malt base in this one is pale ale, Cara Munich, Munich malts, and also chocolate, and the hops are Columbus, Citra, Mandarina Bavaria, and Simcoe. So it should be really nice. Columbus, of course, is a kind of classic bittering hop. It has that almost licoricey type curry kind of spiciness to it. Citra is the big mango sort of stereotypical IPA hop. Mandarina Bavaria has this really nice juicy orangey quality to it, and Simcoe seems to be a favourite in stouts these days actually, but that's usually a kind of nice passion fruity hop actually. But yeah, a really impressive malt and hop base in this one. I think it'll be really nice. Interestingly, this beer was listed on Untappd as being an English stout, but with those hops in it, it's going to be more of an American stout, I think, to be quite honest with you. But we'll see. And you know, it's got German malts in it. I suspect it will be more like an American stout, to be honest. But we'll get it out and we'll get on with the tasting. But I'm really curious to see how this beer turns out, actually. So yeah, dropped it there. Nice little bit of smoke on the opening, and we'll get it out and into the glass. And I'll tell you straight away, when you open this beer up, this one, I'm guessing that was why there was a little bit of an explosion with this beer. We're going to have to be careful with the pour of this one, because it does seem like it will be a little bit sensitive. But yeah, like I say, the hop and malt profile on this beer is quite impressive actually. So yeah, we're good. Yeah, I did actually see incidentally when I checked the Untappd page out for this beer before, this beer instantly is rated around the 3.6 mark, which is, yeah, pretty good. But I was noticing that a lot of the pictures of this beer did have a fairly big head on them. And I can see why, to be honest, on the pour here. It does seem that I'm guessing this one has been bottle conditioned. It's probably been sitting for a little while, and considering the ABV of this one, it doesn't have a bottled on date. Knowing Systembolaget, this beer has been sat in the warehouse for a little bit before they've actually released it. That's probably the reason why the head is a little bit overactive on this one, but that's not too important a point, right enough. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, it's poured a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour. If I hold this one up to the light, it actually doesn't even have a kind of Coca-Cola coloured edge to it, to be honest. It is completely ebony, black as night essentially. But as you can see with this beer, nice sort of one finger head on it. I would describe that as a light kind of beige, or it's not fawn, to be honest, it is more of a light kind of beige coloured head. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass. There are one or two little bits of sediment in this one. There was a little bit of sediment in the bottom of the bottle there as well. But yeah, it looks pretty much as you would expect from a stout. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, but quite a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, appearance wise, nothing particularly surprising about this beer when you consider it is a stout. At 8% ABV, you know, I'm not sure whether it's whether you could justify arguing that this is an imperial stout rather than a regular stout, to be honest with you, but they have gone for just calling it a stout beer. But yeah, a few little bits of sediment just floating around in this one. But let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. It did smell quite sweet and juicy as we opened it up. Yeah, that is actually quite a fruity stout, to be honest with you. That's the first thing you're going to notice about this one. So yeah, it does have some of these juicy kind of tropical fruits underlying. When you've got Citra and Simcoe in there, that's to be expected. It does have a good bit of, but when you have any hop, to be honest, it does, it depends what you mix it with in terms of malt base as to what exactly you're going to get out of these hops in terms of fruitiness. It's got a lovely kind of sharp plummy note to it, lots of juicy kind of figs, maybe even some dates and stuff like that as well. There is definitely a juicy red fruity quality to it, a little bit of sharpness in there as well, like I was saying, some plums, and it also has this kind of candied strawberry note to it as well. It reminds me of the little heart-shaped sweets you get in Haribo Star Mix as well, but there's definitely a sort of tropically backbone to the beer. And you know, Citra's always going to give you mango, Simcoe's always going to give you passion fruit, Mandarina Bavaria will give you an orangey note. I can definitely pick up the orange, but the tropical fruits are a little bit more subtle. The orange kind of jumps out at you a little bit, and then you've got the red fruity notes as well. So just be aware of that actually when you try this beer. It's a really interesting combination of flavours, I have to say, or aromas rather. On the malty side of things, you can definitely pick up some of the smoothness from those German malts in here. Nice little bit of brown sugar. The caramelly side of this beer, it's got a bit of sweetness to it, but it's also got a kind of toasted edge, and there's definitely some kind of biscuity malts in there as well. It really reminds me of McVitie's digestives. I use that descriptor quite a lot, but it really does have these kind of McVitie's digestives, really like a Twix biscuit in there too. But I think McVitie's digestive is probably the more universally applicable descriptor if we're kind of going down that route. I don't know if I've seen Twixies in Sweden actually, now that I think about it. I don't eat them that often anyway. But yeah, nice chocolatey malts in there. You can smell that there's a little bit of a roasty black malt in this one, but it does have a really smooth bready base to it, which will be from the regular Munich malts. But nice brown sugars, nice little bit of biscuit in there, and the chocolatey notes are coming out interestingly as well. It's more of a milky chocolate actually that you're getting out of this one. So in terms of its aroma, it would really indicate that this is more of a sweet stout rather than a kind of roasty toasty stout, but it does have just a little touch of that almost black malty note in there, and that's interesting because they aren't using black malts in the malt base as far as I can gather. On the hoppy side of things, I would say a little touch of earthiness, good little bit of grassiness in there as well, maybe even a little touch of a floral quality, and of course you've got those fruity notes in there which come from the hops as well. But the green side of the hops is quite reserved in this. This beer is more about the kind of sweetness from the malt base, the chocolate and the caramel, and also the kind of fruity juiciness as well. So like I always say, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma. This is quite an unusual stout in terms of its aroma, to be honest. Really fruity, really juicy, but also very sweet in terms of its malt base as well. This is quite a unique aroma, so do in particular with this beer, take a little bit of time and just enjoy that before you actually try the beer. But let's have a taste of this one then and just see how we get on. This is the Stout, coming in at 8% ABV from Sibbarps Husbryggeri in Limhamn, to the south of Malmö here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål. Yeah, I have to say, that's pretty nice. You know, I'll say straight up, the beer itself, it is a little bit over-carbonated, and you know, to be honest, that was obvious that it was going to be like that with the way it poured. So we'll try to exclude that from the review, to be honest. We will try and focus a little bit more on the flavour, because that really is... that's a kind of minor issue. You can fix that by tweaking it or storing it in a slightly different way, to be honest. But yeah, it is a little... this particular batch is a little bit over-carbonated, but I'm sure they'll fix that with their future batches. But in terms of the flavour, this one is really interesting. It actually comes across as kind of similar to a black IPA, to be honest with you. The hoppiness, this beer, it does have a good little bit of hoppiness. Maybe if you aged this one a little bit, you would still get this problem with the head, to be honest. But this beer, it has the nice fruity juicy qualities that you would expect of a black IPA, and the malt base is really nice as well. They've done a good beer here, don't get me wrong, it's really good, but there's just something in my head that makes me say that this is a black IPA rather than a straight up stout. Yeah, I mean, in fairness, you could say that this is just quite a hoppy stout. It depends what route you want to go down, actually. But they have done a good job here. This is, you know, this is definitely the most complex beer that I've had from Sibbarps Husbryggeri so far. But it definitely, I mean, just to me, it definitely displays a little bit of a black IPA quality. It definitely, you know, it has some stout basis to it, but it is a little bit more like a black IPA in my opinion, just because of the hoppiness. And I'm interested a little bit as to why Untappd would list this as an English stout, because it most definitely isn't. If it's any kind of stout, it's an American stout, and just to me, if I blind tasted this, I would think it's a black IPA. But yeah, the main point to take away from this is that it is a good beer, and I do like this one. This is definitely the most complex beer that I've had from Sibbarps Husbryggeri so far. So yeah, let's try and break the flavour of this one down a little bit and just see how we get on. Yeah, so middle of your palate then, you're going to notice that this beer, it's very, very smooth, and I do suspect that they've used Weirmann malt in this. I've got a very good friend who lives in Bamberg in Germany, and I've been to the Weirmann malt factory, and their malts that they use just have this very distinctive smoothness to them. And if you try a few of the local Bamberg beers, particularly the ones who use these Weirmann malts, and most of them do, you really do start to get a feel of what they're like. You can really feel this sort of white kind of bready quality just blanket the middle of your palate. The chocolatey malts are all infused into that, which are giving it some nice, you know, some really nice darkness in there. That's where the sort of dark side of this beer is coming from. In the very centre of your palate, you start to get the more caramelly and biscuity aspects to this beer. In the very centre of your tongue, you do get this nice, sweet caramel backbone to the beer, and as you move further out from the centre of your palate, it gradually becomes a little bit more biscuity, but then that starts to get suppressed a little bit by the sort of roasty black side of the beer. But it is a quite sweet, quite hoppy stout, this one. The malt base that they've got here is really quite nice. I do like that smooth aspect to it, and I'm finding as well that the more and more that I drink of it, it does start to sweeten up a little bit actually. And the further, you know, it is a little bit sweeter at the front. It's a little bit darker and more roasty at the back. And on the hoppy side of things, it's got a nice roasty, toasty. The earthiness is quite roasty and toasty, and that's kind of, they're saying they've not used black malt in this beer. That kind of gives the beer the more of that kind of almost Russian Imperial Stout quality. It's definitely not a Russian Imperial Stout, this, by no stretch of the imagination. As I said, if I tasted this beer blind, I would probably say it's a black IPA. So probably the right description for this beer is a hoppy stout. Now, you can sort of debate styles of beer all day. As I said earlier, the main focus should be whether it's a good beer or not, and it is. They've pulled off something here that's quite complex and really quite nice. So yeah, it's really interesting that. So a nice roasty, toasty, earthy quality to the beer at the back of the palate. The earthiness spreads further forward a little bit on the edge of the tongue. That will incidentally be coming from the Columbus. The Columbus gives you a good little bit of earthiness, but as you come further forward along the sides of the palate, it's a little bit more kind of floral and aromatic, and it's a little touch spicy, and again, that's Columbus giving you that. As you go round the front curve of the palate, you've got that nice lighter grassiness that you would expect as well. So the green side of the hops in this beer are pretty much as you would expect. Those would probably smoothen out a little bit as you age this beer. So it would start to lean more towards the earthy side of things the longer that you age this beer. I don't think it actually says. It says on the side here, yeah, actually best before the 26th of August 2019. So for a beer that's 8%, you probably could age this one a little bit longer than that, if they could sort out the bottle conditioning thing that we saw. But yeah, it's good that it is definitely a hoppier stout. It's one that's really got me thinking. I mean, you can probably gather that from the sort of rambling review that you're getting of this one compared to the more almost professional reviews that you get of the other beers. It really is a beer that I find quite interesting. Behind the front curve of the palate, of course, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters start to come out of the beer. And again, this is where the beer really shows some complexity. Yeah, so at the back of that oily bubble, you get a little touch the kind of mango-y passion fruit flavours. It's the Simcoe and the Citra kind of playing with each other. When you come a little bit further forward on it, you get a little bit of the orange, which is the Mandarina Bavaria. But just on the kind of front tip of the tongue, if you like, you've got a nice kind of plummy, raisiny kind of sharpness out of this one. It does have that slightly, it's not quite tart, but it does have a really nice, quite sharp red fruity character. And the further you go into the aftertaste, the more the mangoes and the passion fruits kind of mix together. It does become more of a mango the further you go into the aftertaste, but you also get the orangey notes kind of pushing their way out as well, and you start to get the kind of candied strawberry sort of flavours out of the beer as well. It does remind me of those little heart-shaped sweets in the Haribo Star Mix. I use that descriptor quite a lot as well, but the further you go into the aftertaste of this beer, the more kind of candied and juicy and sweet the fruity flavour becomes. The earthiness kind of pushes its way out a little bit more. The sort of floral spicy quality of the beer just push back a little bit, and you also get some of the more kind of roasty toasty aspects out of the malt base too. So yeah, like I say, this is a quite a complex beer, and it's really interesting how it goes together, and it is one that really has made me think a little bit. This is definitely, in my opinion, more like a black IPA than it is a stout, to be honest, but I guess you could say it is a hoppy stout. The beer it reminds me of, it was one from Finland, not the Plevnans, I want to say maybe the Plevnans Siperia was that big hoppy stout beer that I had from Finland, and that was a really interesting beer. This one reminds me quite a lot of that actually, but it has a lot of black IPA qualities to it, this beer. It is definitely a more hoppy and fruity and juicy stout compared to other ones that I've had. If you aged it out a little bit, it would obviously change over time, but I think you would struggle to do that because it is just a little touch, at least this batch is just a little touch over carbonated, to be honest. But in terms of it as a beer, it would be really nice. I'd be really curious to try this one on tap, because I think with that fresher conditioning, if you like, and the slightly smoother mouthfeel you get out of it, they are really onto a winner with this one. This is definitely the boldest and kind of most complex beer that I've had from them so far. To be honest, one thing I would say is that I feel a little bit bad because I've had two beers now from these guys where I've gone in and kind of said, this, I don't think they're marketing this as the right style. To me, this is definitely more of a black IPA than it is a stout, and I said the same about their New England IPA a little bit, to be honest. It wasn't quite a New England IPA in the traditional sense, if you like, but they were both good beers, and that's one of the things I do feel a little bit bad that there's two beers that I've said this kind of thing about now. But to me, this is definitely more of a kind of black IPA. To be honest, it's almost more of an imperial black IPA than it is a stout, to be honest. But it's a good beer, and that is the main thing. In terms of the mouthfeel, then, I would say that this beer, it should be the top end of mid-bodied, but it's a little bit over-carbonated, and I think that's a conditioning thing, because it is, I suspect, you know, with the residue that's in this one, the sedimentation that's in here, this is a bottle conditioned beer. If they can sort out their bottle conditioning and just get this beer a little bit smoother, again, they'll really be on to a winner. And it may well be that the slight overcarbonation this beer has is giving me more an impression of it being a black IPA. Perhaps if they smoothed it out a little bit, it would come across as more of a stout. That's one of the interesting aspects of this beer, because it does have that big smooth malt base. It has a nice big German smooth malt base to it. But yeah, carbonation is very active in this one, but I guess that might change with future batches. Overall, the mouthfeel, it's actually got quite a bit of an oiliness to it. It has a little bit of a wetness to it also. Good bit of hoppy bitterness. I think we're talking around 70 IBUs in this beer. And a lot of that will be coming from the Columbus spiciness, but also something from the malty side of the beer as well. Lovely kind of balance in the malt base between the smoothness and the sweetness. It has that German smoothness to it, but then it's got a little bit of the sweetness from the brown sugars, from the Cara Munich and stuff like that as well, and also from the chocolate malts. But it's got a really lovely and quite complex, juicy, fruity quality to it as well. So overall, what I would say about this beer is it is one that is really quite interesting and quite complex to the palate. Definitely the most kind of bold beer that these guys have produced so far. I would perhaps argue that it is more of a black IPA, but like I said, the main question is whether it's a good beer or not. and they have produced yet another good beer. So I guess the guy who does the marketing at Sibbarps Husbryggeri is going to hate me for this review, but to me they've done a nice beer here. It's just more of a black IPA than it is a stout in my opinion. But thumbs up to Sibbarps Husbryggeri for coming up with something as good as this. It is quite cool to see the very small and local breweries trying things that are as bold as this, but hopefully they can sort out the sort of conditioning of this one, and I'm sure they will do that for future batches. But they've produced a nice complex beer here, and if they can produce things like this, I think that bodes well for the future as well. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one is the stout beer from Sibbarps Husbryggeri in Limhamn in Malmö. A really interesting hoppy stout if you like, but in my opinion more of a black IPA. But thanks again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Sibbarps Husbryggeri as well. You will definitely see me review more from these guys in the fairly near future. Until the next time, it's Landry just now. Check out my social media, and I'll catch you guys very soon. The stout beer from Sibbarps Husbryggeri in Limhamn in Malmö. Skål.